Y'all know what it is.
Yeah, the Super Bowl Super Bowl victory parade was incredible. So we are the company I'm at now, IMS. We're the Eagles. We're their provider. So in their stadiums, like typically like their concourse levels and their club levels. There we go. That's what I was looking for. They have corporate events all year round, right? So we do events for them all year round. We do like their autism walks and things like that. So when it came time for them, when they were a week out from the Super Bowl, we got the call that says, "Hey, if we win, we have to be ready for a parade." And they knew that I had done work with like the inauguration and things like that. So I had done events of this scale because being this was Eagles' first Super Bowl, they expected it to be just go insane. And so we had 1 week to plan what would normally take months to plan. It was just one stage. If you're familiar with the Rocky Steps, there was a stage right on the Rocky Steps. And if you stand on the Rocky Steps and look out towards Philadelphia, it's about a clear mile shot to what's called City Hall. So we go down for the site visit, and I'm like, all right, so where do you expect people to be so I can know where to put speakers and point them? And they're like, everywhere. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, all right. So like I started making like these heat maps of like where I would think people would be and start designing the system. The system was over a mile long. So I had delay speakers basically after I got the first oval area. About every 400 feet was this giant pole with two hangs of speakers, shooting out across the different areas. But the last delay tower of speakers was over a mile away. That was a lot of delay time, right? So you have to what's called time align these speakers so that when you that way it's not like a pop 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 when someone speaks. It all kind of moves at the same time, so we had to prepare for a whole week whether they were going to win or not. So we had to be ready Monday morning to go to start loading in if they won because the parade is going to be on that Wednesday.
Wow.
And so I never cared more about a football game in my life than watching that. I'm actually a Ravens fan. I'm from Maryland. But since I've been in the Philly area now for the last 10 years, I was like, okay, I can root for the Eagles on this one. And so I designed a system. I was able to mix it. If you're a football fan, the Jason Kelce speech was a pretty epic, speech. I was heavily riding the gain knobs on that because he was just eating that microphone. And it was an intense event. I mean, the people. Yeah, 800 some million. It's hard to tell how many people were there, but I mean, it was massive, and there's definitely nothing like it.
Well, so how does that work when you do have that much delay or that much ground to cover? Is it basically, I guess, opposite of delay? So the guy is speaking in real time and it's being transmitted, this full mile away, but it's got to hit the back people at the same time he says the thing. So like, I mean, is there sort of a reverse delay where he's speaking and they're actually hearing it in the back first or something? Like, how does that work?
No, I mean, the idea is, so if you didn't put delay, it would be instantaneous. Like as soon as he said it up front, you would also hear it a mile away, but then you would hear it again because air doesn't stop moving, right? So the speakers from the front are still pushing air down. So you would hear it multiple times. And so if you didn't delay all the speakers to the front, and so what it is like, so if he spoke out of the first speaker, the time it takes the airwaves to move from that first speaker to the next speaker, you have to put that amount of delay time in so that basically the next speaker is picking up where the airwaves will meet it at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So technically the people in the back, yes, are hearing it later than the people in the front. However, if you didn't actually delay the speakers, you would hear multiple repeats of the same word.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's what I was trying to figure out is, if he's speaking, I mean, is he saying something, but because of the delay so that the people in the back are hearing it at the same time, like if it was, I don't know, sort of going in reverse order or something. So, but your explanation is perfect. I get it now.
Yeah. It's crazy to just all the moving parts in any type of system like that. Just the time.
And that's the thing is, I mean, I've been a part of, festivals and stuff like Mike, you and I went and saw Kings of Leon up at the Gorge. in Washington, and it's the same sort of thing, right? They've got a delay. They've got a crowd of 120,000 people or whatever it is. So they've got the different tiers or the different rings around the stage. So I understand it in principle, but I mean, a mile long, that's pretty bonkers.
It's a lot of delay. So to speak even further, we had to stack delay. I mean, typically the units that you would use to do these delays aren't, I had over 3 seconds of delay by the time it was at the end.
That's insane.
And they're just not even made for that, right?
That's a lot. When
normally you're dealing milliseconds.
Milliseconds. Yeah. Like if I'm like in a theater or in an arena, we're talking, I never hit a second, let alone 3 seconds. So what we did is there was a certain point where like the first speaker for the main road started, like we delayed the signal for that standpoint and then restarted the signal from there, starting on that already delayed time. So you're putting delay on top of a delay and then doing delay in the amplifiers as you went down the way to kind of like stack the delay, because typically over 3 seconds, you don't normally delay that much.
That's
right.
so crazy.
But the person speaking is hearing themselves in real time via monitor or something, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel weird, because I guess if you were speaking over that delay, it'd be really hard to keep with it.
Yeah, and sure, there's reflections, right? There's major buildings everywhere. You're going to hear it, but I mean, for the most part, you're hearing a direct sound right next to you.
Very cool.
So that's an amazing gig. That's pretty crazy. I always wonder what it'd be like to set up a system like that and have that kind of just craziness going on. Most of my stuff is pretty small, so in comparison, I've done pretty good sized stuff. But
maybe this is just another technical question, but I mean, like, are you physically running cable a mile away? Like, I mean, are you running a hard line that way, or do you start dealing with wireless stuff, or is there another way of moving audio from A to B?
Yeah, sure. So where we would hardwire. We would use fiber basically to run to kind of each tower, because you can run fiber, thousands of feet. It's not a problem. As far as there was a certain point down what's called Broad Street. Actually, it's the Parkway, where we used RF, radio frequencies. We were kind of transmitting it like a radio station, if you will, and had antennas at each tower. So you had like a local generator powering a local amplifier for that speaker cluster, and also was like an LED wall there, so people could also see what was happening. So that was like a big transmission that was shooting down. So a good bit of the delays were picked up what we call RF or radio frequencies to go down the way, because you could have done it over fiber, but the problem is you got to run that cable. You either got to string it up or you got to run on the ground, hope it doesn't get cut, things like that. So, yeah.
Well, and that I think was the thing. I mean, in my head, I was envisioning the world's largest snake running from a soundboard at the front, something that runs a mile down the road. I was just like, I couldn't figure it out. I was having trouble wrapping my head around it.
I mean, but if you want to think about different context, so Times Square New Year's Eve, which I've also done, they take up that whole section. That's all hardwired. They don't do any RF in there in terms of the speaker transmission. So, they start on December 26th and they're every night, and they're running fiber from like light pole to get to each tower. So, I mean, it could be done. It's just a matter of time and resources.
Okay. Well, and then I guess, speaking of resources, you didn't have a lot of time to plan this thing. I guess was it Maryland Sound that did this one, or was it the
IMS?
So this was IMS.
So does IMS have all this gear just laying around in stores? Obviously you're going to have to set aside some gear so you're ready. Like, how does the technical aspect of just gathering equipment work for something like this that may or may not happen?
Yeah, so it's a pretty common thing in the industry to subrent or partner with another company, right? So, while we're not technically set up at IMS to do events like this, I could partner with MSI. And so, like, the other thing that MSI had were these things, we call them the poles. You see them at the inauguration, you see them at Times Square New Year's Eve. They're these 40-foot poles that you can hang speakers from, as opposed to having to build a big scaff tower. So, MSI brought in 14 of those for me. You can only fit 4 of those a flatbed per truck. So, there was, I had over 250 what they called, JBL Vertec
I like
VTX
the Vertex
boxes.
Yeah.
And these are big boxes, right? So like the boxes are dual 15s for the low end, 4 8-inch drivers for the mid driver. It's a big effing box, right? And I had almost 300 of those, flying in the air for this gig. So
I can't even imagine.
It's all about having resources, I'm still good friends with the guys at MSI, and we trade gigs back and forth as we can. So that's just part of the industry.